An enterprise's security posture cannot be assumed just because the architecture looks solid on paper. To know if a network can withstand an attack, it must be continuously and practically verified against active threats. This flowchart illustrates the 5-phase penetration testing methodology, a formal structure organizing disparate security tools into a cohesive framework. The cycle begins with planning. Here, scope, objectives, and legal authorizations are documented, establishing the boundary between an authorized assessment and a cyber attack. Planning determines the tester's level of visibility. A black box test simulates a zero-knowledge threat. The penetration tester operates blindly, receiving no internal routing data, credentials, or architectural maps. A gray box test offers a compromise. Testers are provided partial information, such as a specific internal IP address subnet like 10.10.10.0/24. This accelerates the assessment by removing time-consuming guesswork. Finally, a white box test grants complete architectural transparency. This ensures the maximum possible vulnerability coverage across the network, even though it bypasses the constrained external perspective an actual attacker would face. Establishing these exact parameters up front contains the blast radius of the test. It ensures the assessor avoids causing accidental denial of service conditions or corrupting production data during the exercise. This structured planning ensures the test focuses on the organization's high-value assets rather than irrelevant endpoints. By defining the scope and threat model early, the assessment maps to the actual risks the business faces. Once the rules of engagement are signed, the cycle moves to Phase 2, information gathering and discovery. Here, the initial reconnaissance dictates exactly which attack factors the testing team will leverage. Testers deploy network scanning tools like Nmap to sweep the target environment, systematically identifying active services and mapping open ports across the infrastructure. The methodology depends on the planning phase. A tester might deploy stealthy TCP SYN scans to quietly probe for responses, or execute full TCP connect scans to verify services, depending on whether avoiding detection is part of the test parameters. Finding specific legacy ports open during the scan is an immediate red flag. Discovering port 21 for FTP or port 23 for Telnet exposes critical vulnerabilities regarding clear text data transmission. The scan goes beyond simple port identification. Automated tools connect to these open services and collect banner information, a process called service fingerprinting, which reveals the exact software versions running on the target hardware. This discovery phase takes a list of abstract IP ranges and translates it into a tangible, measurable attack surface. It tells the assessment team exactly which automated exploitation tools to queue up for the next phase. That brings us to Phase 3, vulnerability scanning. The focus shifts entirely from mapping network topology to probing application logic and identifying specific CVEs. To test how a web application handles malformed or unexpected data inputs, testers use automated fuzzers, like the tool Zuff. These continuously feed invalid data into the application to force crashes and expose potential format string vulnerabilities. Organizations evaluate the rigor of these software testing suites by tracking specific coverage criteria. They measure whether the tests successfully execute complete input, statement, branch, and condition coverage. This stacked bar chart visualizes a software testing cycle's completion rates. While tests 2 and 4 executed flawlessly, tests 1 and 3 contain dark gray blocks. These segments represent functional flaws in the software, requiring direct remediation. A major technical hurdle in this phase is making sense of the telemetry. A network scanner and an application fuzzer generate completely different output formats, making it difficult to prioritize the patching process. The solution is the Security Content Automation Protocol, or SCAP. This framework uses common vulnerabilities and exposures, CVEs, to standardize vulnerability identity, and applies the CVSS framework to generate uniform severity scoring across all tools. By applying SCAP, Phase 3 takes a scattered pile of application crashes and network misconfigurations and translates them into a prioritized, standardized matrix of potential exploits. Phase 4 is exploitation. Beyond gaining system access, the attack tests the organization's internal logging by forcing the defensive stack to react to live threats. This network diagram outlines the central logging infrastructure. Consider a simulated exploit path. An attacker compromises a wireless access point, bypasses the data center firewall, and executes malicious code on the Linux web server, routing data to a CM appliance. For the CM appliance to piece together that lateral movement, the underlying endpoints involved in the chain must rely on standardized telemetry mechanisms. In this environment, wireless access points and Linux servers stream event data using syslog, but Windows desktops do not. Administrators must deploy group policy to standardize and forward Windows event logs directly to the CM. Tying all of this disparate logging together requires a strict adherence to the Network Time Protocol, or NTP, across every single device. If the clocks are not perfectly synchronized, correlating a multi-stage attack across firewalls, Linux servers, and Windows desktops becomes mathematically impossible for the CM. Additionally, mandating unique user IDs across these logs ensures strict accountability, allowing investigators to trace an attacker's steps during post-exploitation forensics. A successful penetration test proves whether a system compromise will actually trigger a synchronized, detectable alert in the CM, rather than quietly disappearing into siloed endpoint logs. The cycle concludes with Phase 5, reporting. This is where raw technical exploits and CM log data are translated into actionable business intelligence. This line graph charts key performance indicators, mapping time to remediate against the number of vulnerabilities. The trend line indicates a maturing security posture. In an effective program, as total vulnerabilities decrease, remediation velocity accelerates, driving required patching time down. However, metrics require nuance. If a patch is successfully applied, but a vulnerability scanner continues to flag a false positive on the system, blindly uninstalling and reinstalling the patch will not fix the data. The correct procedural response requires the security team to intervene. They must either update the vulnerability report with alternate remediation options or formally document the accepted risk to clear the false positive. These internal metrics ultimately serve an external purpose. The technical findings from penetration testing feed directly into formal compliance reviews and trust audits. For organizations needing to prove their security posture to third-party clients, the gold standard is the SSAE 18 SOC 2 report. Specifically, clients require a Type 2 report. Unlike a Type 1 report, which only assesses design at a single point in time, a Type 2 report legally verifies the operating effectiveness of security controls over a continuous period. The 5-phase methodology converts technical data into evidence for corporate compliance. Network scans and logs provide the factual foundation for a verified SOC 2 audit.